Tripoint Conversations, and I'm your host, Kristina Lowe. Today I'm sitting down with Linda Ruffenach, founder of Execuity. Linda is not just a fractional CFO. She's a former operator who has carried the responsibility. Running teams, owning results, and sitting in boardrooms and making decisions where the consequences were very real. Today she works alongside business owners to bring structure to growth, discipline to decision-making, and clarity to what comes next. Linda, I'm really glad you're here.
Thank you. Very nice introduction. I appreciate that.
Yeah. Well, you have quite the resume.
Well, I've done a few things over my lifetime.
Yeah. Well, and that's where I was going to start with to understand before you got to where you are today with your own company, what led you to want to start out on your own?
Well, I was with the same company for 19 years. And when I started there, it was just a startup. And we ended up growing that to 3,000 people with 11 locations over 4 countries. It was a call center, customer engagement marketing agency. Mm-hmm. I ran operations most of the time, did a stint as CFO, and I'm not your typical CFO from the standpoint I was an operational CFO. When I was in operations, I couldn't get the information I wanted, so I figured I'll go do it myself. Yeah. So I did that for about 4 years, and then I eventually moved into the CEO role. And when I moved into that CEO role, I realized how lonely it really can be, and lonely at the top. And we were in the process of being completely transitioned over to a public company. And my job was to figure out how do we maximize the payout, the earnout. I was a second generation owner, so that was key to what I was doing. But it also, as a female CEO, I really needed some, not just as a female, but just as a CEO in general, I needed guidance, and I sought out. And so I ran into 2 types of people, which was, here's my cookie cutter approach, need to follow my formula, which that doesn't work in every situation. Mm-hmm. And then the second was a fantastic person sitting next to me who wanted to make it clear they were sitting next to me. And, you know, as a female CEO, I did not need that in front of a big board. Mm-hmm. And so when I left, I decided I wanted to be that person. I wanted to be that person I could not find. Mm-hmm. And so that's the reason why I started Execuity.
Okay. What were you hoping to change once you're no longer inside someone else's structure?
Gosh, well, you know, part of the reason why I left was my kids were getting a little older. Mm-hmm. I was traveling quite a bit, traveling internationally, and I just wanted to spend more time with them. They were at kind of that critical age of, I believe they were 9 and 11 at the time, and it just provided me that flexibility. So that was one of the big things.
Okay.
But the other thing is, you know, I've been blessed with a lot of gifts and experiences and knowledge. And so as I've matured over the last few years, I realized a big part of it is my purpose and really discovering what my purpose is and, you know, my responsibility to pay it forward wherever I can.
What was that like in the beginning as you were moving away from corporate and then starting your own company?
Well, it was interesting because, you know, I'd been with the same company for 19 years, and a big impetus for that change was because I was traveling all over the place, and my kids were at a crucial age between, I think they were 9 and 11, something like that. And I wanted to start spending more time with them. And they were getting to the point like, Mom, when are you going to stay home? When are you going to be here? So that was a big part of it. But also, you know, leaving after 19 years, that was a big transition. The funny part was it was easier than I thought it would be. Mm-hmm. After I really was able to put it behind me, and because there's that lingering thing, you know, that people call you and they want to tell you all the gossip of what happened after you left and all that stuff. And I really had to shut that down, and I had to say, you know, I've got to move on. And then I kept some friendships. Actually, just had a reunion with a bunch of them the other night. But moving on was an interesting experience, but I was glad I did it. Mm-hmm. I questioned myself why I didn't do it earlier. And it was really good. I will tell you the one thing I learned from that, and as I've mentored, sometimes with people transitioning careers, I'll spend time mentoring them and helping them figure out what they want to do. And, you know, taking time to figure out if you are able to, taking a few months to figure it out before you jump into something immediately, is something that I think is really important. I was fortunate. I had a long runway because when I left, I convinced them to let me go, which meant I got a nice package out of it. Nice. And so I had a lot of time to figure that out. Mm-hmm.
You mentioned mentorship. Did you have a mentor guiding you as you were thinking about starting your own company?
It's funny. I really didn't. I wished I had. I had, I had other people that wanted to work with me. So I went and worked with them, kind of doing contract work for a little while. I had a couple of people really wanting to hire me. But I don't know. My gut said don't do it. And, but I did have a partner initially, when I started Execuity, and we had a fantastic year and a half that we worked together. We lost a major client, and then we realized we both had different priorities at that point. So I carried on with Execuity, and she went on and still working for a prior client of ours and doing incredibly well.
And what is it like? Because you didn't start out as an advisor. You started out making the decisions. And I'm curious, in your role today, how does that feel not to have that final decision, but on the sidelines, I'll say, as an advisor to other people?
It can be a struggle. It can be a struggle. In the beginning, I talked about the client we lost. That taught me a lot. Great client from the standpoint of what they were doing and how they were doing it. Paid really well. But the individual that I was working with, which was the business owner, refused to take responsibility for the decisions. They were my decisions. And I'm like, they're not my decisions. I'm guiding you. I'm trying to advise you. At the end of the day, you have to own it. And what ended up happening was we put this whole strategy together, and we go in within his team and it presents it. And he goes, well, this is what Linda's telling us what to do, so you can try it. And I'm like, okay. So for me, it's really important that I'm adding value. And not that every one of my ideas is right, but if you're going to buy into it, buy into it. If you're not, then that's okay. But in this case, I felt like my value was being diminished. And so I chose not to work with them. And that's something I began to learn about myself over time, which is I learned not to worry about the money. The money will come. But as long as I'm adding value somewhere, the right things will come along.
How do you get most of your clients? Is it word of mouth?
100% referrals.
Yeah.
Now I say that it's 100% referrals, but I will do workshops. I've done several women's retreats with the Women's Presidents Organization, done them with other groups, a lot of women's groups, but, where I will get up there and share with individuals, how do you accelerate the value of your business, as well as how do you manage through those transitions and figure out what you want and what you want your legacy to be, and how do you build a plan now versus after you leave to get there and to protect that legacy.
Have you had other clients that you've come in and thought, this is just not a great fit? And can you walk through what that experience is like?
Well, I will tell you, I think things come across in your life when the time is right and those opportunities are there. And then at some point you realize it's time for me to move on to my next opportunity. There was a period where my mother was sick and not feeling, we were going through a lot of things. She eventually passed away, but I ended up taking an interim COO position. Kind of going back into the work that I was doing before. Worked with a business owner. I ended up doing that for, I think I was there maybe 18 months. But I realized at a certain point after my mother passed away that it was for that time and that place. But I did not want that long term, even though they wanted me there. I didn't want that responsibility for having that many people again. As a CEO, I lived with the responsibility of 3,000 people and 3,000 families every day, waking up to that. And that was heavy. It was a lot. As an advisor, I still have a lot of responsibility, but I'm there to support that CEO and how did they manage that responsibility and do it successfully.
What are some things that you notice when you go in now that comes a little bit sooner than when you first started out in this business?
Oh, financials. Here's the thing. I took it for granted. So the company I was with was founded by ex-GE executives.
Okay.
And if anybody's familiar with GE, they're very metric driven, very financially disciplined. So I grew up with that type of environment. I was in that we measured everything. We knew how the financials and the different levers, all that kind of stuff. When I started going out and doing advisory work, I was shocked how much business owners did not know about their financials. So as I've done this, that's always the place I start, regardless of where they're trying to go. It's they're like, let's start with your financials first, because that's the core to deciding what your pathway is going to be, you got to make sure you have the money there to do it. You also maybe need to be looking at how do you not leave money on the table. 9 times out of 10, I'll ask a business owner, so tell me where you want to be in 5 years. Their answer is always revenue based. It's always, I want to be a 5, 10, $15 million company. And then I ask, well, what does that mean? And they're like, what do you mean? What does that mean? And that's where the conversation begins, because while revenue is incredibly important, that kind of becomes that, for lack of a better term, status symbol that you have for your business. So the next place maybe they're looking at is the profits and what's the earnings and all that kind of stuff. But what they're not focusing on is the intrinsic value of that business. And shifting their mindset to think like an investor, because most of them have like 75% of their wealth tied up into their businesses. But they pay closer attention to what's going on in the stock market than they do sometimes in their own business, and maybe understand why those numbers change versus why their numbers change. I had a conversation last week with someone who was, it was a common problem. Her business is growing, but her bottom line was not. And she was still bringing home as much money as she was when she was a third smaller.
So if it's not profit or revenue, and you talk about intrinsic value, how do you help them put a number to that and measure it?
Well, there's a couple different things. There's one, looking at the other variables that influence that, which is what type of revenue do you have coming in the door? Is it one-time revenue? Is it project-based revenue? Or is it recurring revenue? Recurring revenue is worth a lot more than just project revenue, because if you go to put your business out on the market and try to sell it, that buyer is looking for the ability to replicate and grow what you've been doing. And if you've got a strong base to build off of, then it's worth a lot more. So it's really focusing on that recurring revenue. But it's also understanding which parts of that revenue do you make the most money on, which are more profitable. And many times companies don't realize that their passion and what got their business started may be the anchor that's weighing them down. And that's a difficult conversation to have with a business owner when you say, I know you love this. This is great, but you're losing. And literally I had one client that was losing $1 million a year on the products that they loved. And then they had basically a ATM over that was just printing cash on another side of the business that they didn't love, but it was the one that was keeping their doors open.
So do you say you could try to come in and help them look at the bigger picture and not be as emotional to the business?
Yeah, I mean, part of it is you got to step back. The second big thing is that dependency upon you as the owner. You know, many owners take pride in the fact that they know every client by name, and the client can pick up the phone and call them, which is great. You got great relationships. But if that business is dependent upon you, your value has diminished, because the fact that if something happens to you, what happens to your business? Or you go to sell it and, you know, you're kind of like, oh, I built this business, which is great, but the value isn't out there for somebody else who wants to come in and buy it. And also for those that maybe are planning on transitioning to the next generation, you've got to do things to prepare that next generation. And you also have to do things to prepare your business for a transition, because guess what? You're going to leave your business no matter what someday. It can be on your terms or somebody else's. So my goal is to get it to at least outline how you want it so that it can be on your terms.
That makes sense. And I imagine most business owners say they want to start with a strong foundation. How do you translate that to numbers or realistic output when they say a strong foundation?
That's a great question. Well, it goes back to the numbers. Foundational is your numbers, and do you understand your numbers? And I'm not talking about I mean, a lot of business owners, they know they have revenue and they know they have money in the bank. They may have some variables they measure within their business, but a lot of them don't. So the first thing is that foundational piece is really understanding those triggers and those levers that you can pull, and being realistic of, can you control them or can you not control them? There is the part of the products and services that you offer, you know, that how are you thinking about your products and services? The foundational is that they're scalable, they're repeatable, they're teachable to where they're not dependent upon you. And to me, if you can get to that place, then you've built a strong business.
You're also very clear about profitable growth, not just for growth's sake, it sounds like. From what you've seen, when does growth actually start to hurt a business?
I got a great example.
Yeah.
Which is when I was with the company I was with for 19 years. We worked for a large telecom company. They made up 60% of our business, and that was a huge, huge risk for the business. We had a large concentration problem. Well, they came to us and they wanted us to build 2 new call centers for them. When you did the math on it, the ROI was right there, because I can produce that. It's going to pay for itself, all this stuff. But it made our concentration problem that much worse. But, the powers that be at the company that owned us, and I was bought into this as well. We decided to build the call centers and build them. Well, we made that decision in 2007. In 2008, everything nosedived, and we were sitting there with 2 brand new call centers and having to face laying off 1,500 people. Yeah. One of the hardest times in my career ever that I, had to go out there and lay people off. But we ended up, it made us stronger in the end, but that revenue, we were chasing the revenue, we were chasing the dollars. But by increasing our concentration problem, we decreased the value of the business. There would put a lot of risk and a lot of eggs in one basket. So when that one basket falls over, all your eggs break. We did not, because we kind of got fat and happy, which this is a common problem out there. When owners get fat and happy and the business comes in and it's just kind of rolling in, you take your eye off the sales pipeline. And we took our eye off the sales pipeline because we didn't need it. We didn't know how we would do it if we got it.
Yeah.
And in that case, it really did end up not being a great revenue. And that's the one thing is, I always say not all revenue is good revenue.
Sounds like a lot of your time is spent in Execuity in your business, but what other things are you involved with?
My little dirty secret. No, I actually the founder of a group called Whiskey Chicks,
I saw that,
which I started that around the same time. Actually, when I was leaving the company I was what I call a lame duck for 5 months. So I'd given my notice. We had talked about it, but they wanted me to stay on for 5 months. But instantly I became irrelevant. When people knew I wasn't going to be there, they're like, I don't have to worry about her anymore. But I still had to come into work and I still had something to do. So I started a group called Whiskey Chicks, and it was all about meeting other women who had nothing to do with my work, spouse, or kids. And this was back when the bourbon boom was really starting to take off here in Kentucky, and so I took advantage of that. We grew that, and we still to this day, we've got a group of 100 plus members and about 1,500 followers that keep up with what we do and events that we have. And then it led me to writing a book called How to Be a Bourbon Badass, which is all about learning. It's basically making bourbon more approachable for individuals.
And as you think about building that community outside of your business, what has that done to you as a leader in other areas of your life?
It's funny. Whiskey Chicks taught me more than I realized at the time. One of the biggest things was as I went through watching women learn how to drink bourbon, because at the time, bourbon was not the drink that women drank very much. It was kind of like I actually have t-shirts that says the whiskey's for me, not him, and bourbon not just for boys. Because 9 times out of 10, if you go to the bar and ask for a straight whiskey or straight bourbon, they might look at you like, what? But also, how do you learn about it? Because how do I figure this thing out? And we created experiences along the way where we always had something for the novice, we had something for the enthusiast, and we had something for the connoisseur in every one of our events. So that was one of the things that I learned is that as I'm doing workshops and other things, I need to recognize not everybody's at the same level. And you got to meet them where they are, and you got to have something that connects to them, because it's not good if I got a mixed audience and I'm talking completely to the novices. My enthusiasts and my connoisseurs aren't going to be engaged. So it has to have a little bit of everything. But the biggest lesson was that knowledge and experience breeds confidence. And I watched women literally kind of, a little like this when they're learning about bourbon, like they're kind of, hungover, like not hungover, that comes after, but kind of stooped over.
Yeah.
And as they started to learn what they want, why they want it, how they want it, their confidence started to build, and they sat up straighter. and they knew how to order things at the bar, or they knew how to make the drinks themselves, or they knew whether I like a wheated bourbon or I like a rye bourbon, or I like this brand versus this brand, because they experimented and they got that knowledge and experience. And that breeds that confidence. And so I found that translating over to business owners, particularly when it comes to transition your business. I want you to feel confident on that table when you're negotiating, that you know what your business is worth.
Yeah.
You know why it's worth that. And you know what you want out of the business and what's important to you beyond just the money. Like there's a lot of factors to selling your business that go way beyond the money, which include, protecting your legacy, what's going to happen to your business after you're done. What does it look like for you? When and how are you going to transition out of the business? Those things. But I want that business owner to feel really, really confident about what they want. And that only comes from knowledge and experience. And so that's where I try to pay it forward and share with them whatever knowledge and experience I have so that they can be confident.
That makes sense. And I'm sure the women that are learning more about the bourbon and what they want, they also are able to translate that into their business world and learn how to be more confident and know why they want what they want.
Yeah, absolutely. It's so funny because a lot of the women from there's several women I could name off that have seen them transition where they're at, whether it was that I was the stay-at-home mom for years and now I got the courage to go out and get a job, establish a consulting business, or create their own businesses, to where there's a handful of them that are very much embedded in the bourbon industry, that went to work for major brands that do our tour guides, or build programs around experiences. Those are the things that's kind of cool when you go, wow, that all started with me sitting in my office bored to death one day saying, I need to meet other women who have nothing to do with my work spouse and kids.
Yeah, and drink bourbon.
And drink bourbon. What other way is there to do it?
What about mentorship? How do you mentor others or encourage others to mentor?
I'm not sure if I'm explicit about it, but I will talk to anybody. Anybody wants to, pick up the phone, call me, or someone introduces me to them and they're kind of at that crux of trying to figure out what they're going to do and where they're going to go. I'll have those phone calls and I never turn them down, partly because, and it's not about a business development thing. It really is about my purpose. And if I can pay it forward, I can pay it forward. If I can do that in one phone call, that makes me happy. And I want to see people succeed. I've been very fortunate in my life and I want to see other people succeed. But I also know that there's a lot of bumps and valleys along the way. And if I can help you see that there's a bump or valley and going to be coming up, then I feel like I have the responsibility to share that with you. And, it's funny, when I first, went out into doing this 10, 11 years ago, women were collaborative, but they aren't as nearly collaborative as they are today. Today, they're incredibly collaborative. A lot of times you go into these events and there was that if I met another consultant, I looked at you as competition. But the thing that I love is that in the last several years, it's become, no, you do this, I do this. Even if we're looking at competing for the same client, I do things differently.
Yeah.
They need you for this. They need me for this. And that's okay. And by the way, if you want to work with them versus me, then by all means, because it's just like dating. You got to find the right advisor that you have the right chemistry with, gets where you are, and will help you get to the next level. And by the way, you don't have to work with them forever. If they want to, my job is the best day is when I get let go of a job.
Yeah.
Because they feel confident that they got it from there.
They can go on their own.
They got it.
Yeah.
They got it. And I'm like, all right, cool. Let me know when I can jump in and help again. So
now I want to thank you because that's how we first met, was a phone call. I was going through a transition and someone recommended I reach out to you. And I think that really helped build the confidence that I needed to move forward and take some time first.
Yeah.
But then figure out what I wanted to do. And I can open my own company and we can all work together. There's not just one extra seat at the table for this one woman, but all of us together can build each other up.
See, this is why I do what I do. That's exciting for me. For me to be coming over here, it was about a year ago or something like that.
Yeah.
I remember the phone call distinctly, and you were all excited, but also really nervous about what the heck am I going to do? I'm like, take your time, you'll figure it out.
Yeah.
And then to know this is where you've gotten, and hopefully I helped you just a little bit along the way, that feels really good. Yes. And exciting to be able to kind of come full circle and sit down and be interviewed by you, and to see the success that you're having, because it doesn't happen overnight, you know. And it's not an easy journey.
No.
And there's a lot of, what the hell am I doing?
Absolutely.
And by the way, 10 years later, I'm still asking myself that every once in a while. What the hell am I doing? But, when you find what you love to do, embrace it, lean into it, and figure out how you can make money at it.
Yeah.
So you can survive.
But there's also the extra. I mean, like you have the whiskey chicks. It's not just about the business, but it's having that side thing that you're working on that's more of the creative outlet. And that's why I'm doing this podcast. I have my business side of things, but it's that creative outlet where you can explore more and do more things.
Yeah. And I think you have to have diversity in what you're doing. Besides the whiskey chicks, I mean, the last couple of years, we've really leaned into traveling quite a bit. And so that's kind of where I get my outlet, is you taking time to invest in my relationships, which maybe weren't always at the top of my list when they should be, and to experience life. And there's not all work. I had an epiphany. A lot of times I would sit down and I'd write down my reflections of what I'm grateful for, or the things that I accomplished that day, that I felt like this is where I paid it forward. And it was on a Saturday morning, sitting out on my deck, writing this thing down, and I stepped back and looked at it. It was all business related. I wasn't talking about my kids. I wasn't talking about my husband. And I realized majority of my energy was going all there. And I was getting, not that I wasn't getting joy in the other places, but I wasn't acknowledging that joy.
Yeah.
Because I was leaning so heavily into my business and using that to find my happiness, that I did have happiness around me. I had wonderful people around me, but I needed to be more grateful for what that was and not take it for granted.
Do you think you and others put a lot of self-worth into the titles and the business and the success from what you achieve?
I think there's a little bit of it. I'm not sure that it's titles. For me, my self-worth goes into that pay it forward.
Yeah.
And if I'm not doing that, or I'm not leaning into it, or that it kills me when something's not working for a client, or that the chemistry is not working, or that I'm really great. Like, I'll give you an example. It kind of translates over to the whiskey chicks, right?
Yeah.
I can throw an event. We do surveys on most of our events. And so we'll get like net promoter score of like 90%. But the part that drives me nuts is that other little bit that didn't say they loved it. And it could be that they didn't like the cocktail that we made, or they didn't feel, this one kills me when they don't feel like they're welcomed, because that's one thing we very much concentrate on. Or that they paid too much and it wasn't worth the money. I'm like, those things kill me. They eat me up inside.
Yeah.
So I do find my value in that helping others. As I always laugh, said, I don't get my gold stars like I used to. So I got to figure out how to find my own gold stars.
Yeah.
And kind of recognize those things. But like I said, I was finding all those gold stars within my work. And I had to step back and realize, you know what? I need to earn some gold stars in other places in my life.
Yeah. Yeah, that makes sense. What I'd like to do next is a lightning round. We're going to ask you a few questions. And first thing that comes to mind, a leadership habit that you had to unlearn.
Being in control all the time.
Okay. A season of your career you wouldn't repeat but wouldn't erase.
Building 2 call centers in 6 months.
Yeah, I'm sure that was a lot of experience in there.
Yeah, there was a lot.
Favorite place to travel?
Italy.
What you do to relax or unwind?
Cook and drink wine and enjoy good food.
Favorite wine or type of wine?
Well, type of wine, it's both red and white. Probably one of my favorite is Rombauer Chardonnay. It's a different Chardonnay that's really good. And then when you go to red, it's probably Fela Pinot Noir.
Okay. One thing you protect fiercely on your calendar?
My time to exercise. This last year, I've not taken care of my health all the way, for a long time. And so I've really gotten into Pilates, and it takes me a lot to cancel a Pilates session.
Yeah. Bourbon neat or on the rocks?
Both.
Both. Favorite bourbon?
Oh, God, that's like picking my favorite child.
So many good ones.
Well, there are some amazing ones. First thing is, price is not always indicative of flavor, so don't lean into the price and the big hype around it.
Yeah.
I think one of the best bourbons out there on the market is Old Forester 86. It's a lot of times that shelf bourbon that's in the bars, but it's one that you can drink straight, you can drink on the rocks, and it's wonderful in cocktails.
Okay.
And then, yeah, that's probably my favorite.
If someone was thinking about moving either from corporate into their own business or starting something, what advice would you give them?
Figure out who you are. And what I mean by that is a lot of times, even with my engagements with business owners, is especially when they're looking to leave their business, they got to think about the next chapter. And it's the same kind of thing if you're living corporate. What does my next chapter look like? Understand your strengths, and there's lots of tools out there. I'm a big believer in Strengths Finder, but there's lots of other tools out there. The other thing is write down your headlines. And what I mean by headlines is write down those things in your life, both good and bad, that maybe you only know the meaning to, but were big moments in your life, or things that just stick out, like that time you spoke up in the meeting and there was just this hush, right? That no one said anything, or that moment that you watched your boss do something that was, oh my gosh, you can't make this up, kind of things. To those places where you did get your gold stars, and then also those painful moments that you had. And if you step back and you look at those combined with your strengths, there's a lot of clarity in figuring out, how do I transfer what I've done into the next step in my journey? And you've really got to understand yourself, and that takes a lot of work. A lot of people say their skills aren't, they think, what am I going to do? I've been in manufacturing my whole life. I don't want to be in manufacturing again. Well, there's a lot of transferable skills that you have that have nothing to do with manufacturing. They have to do with leadership. They have to do with challenges that you had. I mean, there's lots of people out there that could use leadership and advice that can be very beneficial. The other thing is, it doesn't have to be a consultant or advisor. I mean, there's lots of businesses out there to buy. Maybe that's what you want to do. But figuring out what that one thing is, because you still have to add value.
Yes.
And to your point, where do you find your worth, your own personal worth? So a lot of times business owners, when they leave their business, I think the stat is 3 out of 4 profoundly regrets leaving their business a year later. And it's one, they didn't get the money they wanted and needed. But 2, the biggest thing is they didn't plan for the next chapter. They didn't think about it. And when they got there, they're like, they were like, I'm going to just go play golf, or I'm just going to vacation. And as someone put to me one time, it's like, you can only go to Costco so many times.
Yeah.
And trying to find, where do you redirect that value? And that could be in your grandchildren, that could be in your community, that could be in a lot of other places, but you got to find that place. Because then I think if you don't, that's when you start withering a little bit.
I can imagine, going from business owner and running a company to just doing nothing. You've got to have some type of self-purpose to keep going forward.
One owner put it really well. He goes, I was instantly irrelevant. And I knew what that feeling was, because I was instantly irrelevant.
Yeah. Where you were making decisions and you had input, and what you said mattered.
Yeah.
To what now?
Now it's like, I don't have to listen to you anymore.
Yeah.
And then also, especially when you're leaving your business, like, I'm leaving that behind. Even though it wasn't wholly my business, when I left where I was at for 19 years, that was difficult from the standpoint emotionally that I built this thing. This was what I invested my life in for 19 years. What are they going to do with it? And I had to let them do what they were going to do and leave it behind. But that's hard. It's really hard to do.
I can imagine after 19 years seeing so much growth and change, but then having to walk away and say it's someone else's now.
Well, and the same thing in corporate world. And, whether you choose to leave on your own or someone makes that choice for you, that transition is hard because, a lot of our social networks are tied around the work that we do. A lot of our self-worth is around that. And so there's a lot of feelings and emotions that you're dealing with at any point in time in those transitions.
Yeah. What else would you share? Anything else that you would share with someone?
Give yourself grace. These transitions, and even in what you're doing right now, give yourself grace. Sometimes we're the harshest critics of ourselves, and that things aren't always going to be evident, but in time they will be. And give yourself grace to get there. Things don't happen overnight, as I'm sure you've experienced in this last year. Give your grace for the wins and the losses, and just learn from every one of them, whether it's a win or loss. I get my best lessons from my losses. Yeah. Embrace those. And there's always tomorrow.
Absolutely.
Tomorrow comes, or we hope it comes for all of us. So,
yeah. Well, Linda, thank you so much for sharing.
you.
If someone is interested in reaching out to you, where can they find you?
Well, my website is execuity.com, and that's EXECUITY.com. Or to make it really easy, you can make an appointment with me at consultlinda.com.
All right. Thank you so much. And thank you for everyone else for listening.
Thank you.
Thanks for listening to Tripoint Conversations. Make sure you hit subscribe wherever you're listening so you never miss an episode. If this conversation resonated with you, share it with a friend or someone who's navigating their own next chapter. And if you know a story that deserves to be heard, or maybe that story is yours, head to tripointstrategicgroup.com and send me a note. I can't wait to keep this journey going with you and introduce you to more incredible people who are shaping their communities one story at a time.